I was supposed to paint my bathroom ceiling yesterday, but I didn't do it. I did that video instead, and my missus went mental when she got in last night. But I told her some things are just more important than painting a bathroom ceiling. But not if you're my wife, which I kinda hope you're not. That would be really weird. Anyway, I need to be as quick as possible. As I said I wouldn't do a video today. I would paint the bathroom ceiling. Oops. So, in yesterday's video, I said that David Cameron would up the rhetoric once bombing in Syria had started to eventually start saying that we needed regime change because Assad is a bad man. Well, I was gobsmacked when, after watching my son play football and win 3-0 last night, I settled down to watch PMQs, and I have to say the first 14 minutes were the most boring PMQs I've ever seen until Cameron said this.
I agree with every word of what she's just said, and I would say that Britain, uniquely amongst countries in the world, actually meets our 2% NATO spending target, so we can play a role in terms of defence and helping to secure these countries, and we reach our 0.7% GDP spending on aid. No other country in the world meets those two, major countries in the world meets those two targets, and I'm proud that we do. She talks about going to the causes of these crises, and she's absolutely right about that. We have to be frank, particularly the Eastern Mediterranean crisis is because Assad has butchered his own people, and because ISIL have in their own way butchered others, and millions have fled Syria. And we can do all we can as the moral humanitarian nation at taking people and spending money on aid and helping in refugee camps, but we have to be part of the international alliance that says we need an approach in Syria, which means we have a government that can look after its people. Assad has to go, ISIL has to go, and some of that will require not just spending money, not just aid, not just diplomacy, but it will on occasion require hard military force.
Assad must go, ISIS must go, and it will on occasion require hard military force. Very few of the MPs hearing what Cameron said yesterday will have any idea of the implications. He said in the House of Commons that the leader of a sovereign country must go, must be removed, more than likely murdered, and that Cameron is willing to use hard military force to achieve this goal. By saying this, Cameron has all but declared war on Syria. He has such a big mouth in the middle of his spam face. And what have our media made of this? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. It wasn't even featured on the BBC's 10 o'clock news last night. Unbelievable. And people wonder how the establishment and the government can get away with these things. Far from Cameron ramping up the rhetoric once the bombing has started, sod that, he's just gone straight for the jugular. Now you thought, as I did, because the government told us, that the reason bombing Syria was back on the table was because of people fleeing ISIS in Syria. Nothing to do with Assad. I knew Assad would be put on the table at some point, but not this soon. This is ridiculous. But Cameron, in his last PMQs, couldn't have been clearer. He wants Assad to go, dead, murdered. He wants ISIS to go, dead, murdered. And he's willing to use hard military force to kill them.
Assad has to go, ISIL has to go, and some of that will require not just spending money, not just aid, not just diplomacy, but it will on occasion require hard military force. The bottom line.
Do you know what this means? The current crop of suck-up, child-raping MPs don't seem to realise what this means, as you can hear from the hears after Cameron said he wanted to kill the leader of a sovereign country. But can you work it out? Remember yesterday I said that the New York Times, which okay is a bit of a crap paper, but still, they reported recently that the US warns Russia over military support for Assad. The New York Times are now reporting US moves to block Russian military build-up in Syria. The United States on Tuesday moved to head off preparations for a suspected Russian military buildup in Syria as Bulgaria agreed to an appeal from the Obama administration to shut its airspace to Russian transport planes. The plane's destination was Syrian port city of Latakia. With Cameron virtually declaring war on Assad, which is clearly over and above what was initially being discussed, as initially the government were talking about attacking ISIS only, you can now see why America are trying to stop Russia getting involved. Because, and I'll say it again, now that Cameron has virtually declared war on Assad and that he must go,
Assad has to go, ISIL has to go.
If Russia are in Syria fighting ISIS, Cameron will have to go through Russia to get to Assad. Cameron was big enough and moral enough to say a while ago that he wasn't going to start World War III over Russia, but he didn't say he wasn't going to start World War III over Syria. And if we start a fight with Russia in Syria, you can bet your bottom dollar that NATO will take the opportunity, with a false flag operation no doubt to be blamed on Russia, and attack Russia in the Ukraine. Then China will join in, America will already be involved, and we will be looking at World War III, and possibly nuclear war. This bunch of MPs haven't got a clue of the ramifications of what Cameron said yesterday. It's a game changer, a deadly game changer, and no one seems bothered. Are you going to allow Cameron to send your sons, brothers, dads, daughters, sisters and mothers over to Syria to fight the Russians? All so that Murdoch and the Rothschilds can drill for oil in the Golan Heights and make even more billions to gorge on? Russia is not Al-Qaeda in 2003. They aren't a bunch of goat herders. How many of our soldiers are willing to put their lives on the line for Cameron? And if it goes nuclear, what's the point in making money anyway? The planet's going to be destroyed. I have a real sinking feeling about this Syria situation. It's like the atmosphere is gloopy with dread. It's like swimming in dark, evil treacle. I know the picture of the drowned Syrian boy was horrendous, but how many children have been killed by Israel every year in Palestine? No one seems to care about these poor souls. I don't hear Cameron saying Benjamin Netanyahu must go, he must be murdered, and that we must bomb Israel back to the Stone Age. I know the refugee situation has turned into a crisis and it's becoming a nightmare, but Cameron is going to make the situation a whole lot worse. Cameron doesn't offer any solution with what he's got on the table. People are fleeing death and destruction. They don't need more death and destruction. And what Cameron is offering is a potential confrontation with Russia. Nuclear Russia. Cameron is insane. He must be stopped. And all this comes about because America created ISIS and continued to arm them. Apparently, accidentally. And Saudi Arabia are ISIS's main sponsor. And now we're looking at a nightmare, a truly nightmare scenario. We need to stop this Syria attack, otherwise God only knows what happens. But remember this, we know who caused this and we will have justice one day.